The Baldwins are a strong and close-knit family. But something happened to oldest daughter Mackenzie the summer before her senior year in high school. Mackenzie met a Muslim man online and kept it a secret for almost a year. She abandoned her family, her friends, and even her Christian faith. In their book, Almost Gone, John and Mackenzie share both sides of their riveting story and how the Baldwins came within days of losing Mackenzie forever.
Well, joining me now is John Baldwin and his daughter Mackenzie, and we welcome you to the Interactive Show. It's good to have you here. You know, Mackenzie, it's not unusual for somebody in high school to meet someone interesting online and to begin to write back and forth. For you, that started pretty innocently. You didn't really think it was going where it went, right? Mm-hmm. So at what point did you realize that maybe this was more than you'd anticipated it was going to be, and it began to change your behavior?
Well, it kind of depends on what kind of perspective you have. In the moment, I realized way too later. It was probably 6 to 7 months when I realized he may be manipulating some of my behavior, but I still felt so in love with him, I was still going to keep doing it. But I kind of had a little bit of clarity that maybe he is doing this. But looking back now, I see that it was within the first month that he started this manipulation. Wow. Mm-hmm.
John, I mean, here you are, you're a protective, loving, involved dad. I mean, you guys were always a really tight family. You had, even beyond that, strong family support from friends and relatives and things. You know, when our kids get to be in high school, I mean, they start having thoughts of their own, minds of their own, opinions of their own. How did you handle this as you saw it start to begin?
You know, the signs at first were really subtle, and we just saw that we just knew that friends that we normally saw weren't coming over as much, and it was curious. We'd ask her about it, but you know, she had an excuse. When Mackenzie asked for the Quran, that was the first time that our antenna obviously went up, and it's like, you know, that was a very unusual request. But you know, I just looked at it, it was the beginning of a spiritual journey for her. Her path is not going to be different than what I grew up in the 60s and the 70s. She's exposed to many more cultures and kids than what I ever grew up with in Louisiana. And so I just tried to be calm about it, and we just agreed that she's going to do a comparison with the Bible, and if you come to me with any questions, I thought it would open a dialogue, and it would just be the beginning of her spiritual journey. Yeah.
Mackenzie, you know, I think for all young people who grow up in strong Christian homes, you know, you feel like you know what you believe, but it still is kind of your parents' faith in a way. Is that part of what left you vulnerable at this point, do you think?
Oh, it absolutely was. He would, I mean, I feel like we all somewhat get questioned on our faith, not necessarily in like a threatening way, but we all just kind of get asked. And normally it's just Bible school answers that you can tell them, and then they'll go away. You know, they'll be like, oh, okay,
Jesus,
you know,
right?
yeah. And he would ask me stuff that I had been asked before about the Trinity and how the Bible could be written by so many different people but still be accurate. And I could answer those questions to an extent. But I was not prepared for him to continue to ask me more and more questions, trying to delve farther into what he was asking me, to the point where I couldn't defend myself, my faith.
So here you are, you start out comparing the Bible and the Quran, but at some point, the Bible kind of went off to the side and the Quran became the focal point, even to the point where you were attending a mosque and considered changing your faith. Mm-hmm. How did that happen?
Well, a very long, subtle process, basically, is the easy way to say it. As far as me moving the Bible to the side and putting the Quran kind of in the spotlight, you could say, that was really indicative of what I was doing with my whole life. I was moving everything aside and putting him, Adam, in the spotlight, and the Bible and the Quran was just a part of it, you know?
At this point, you see your daughter kind of pulling away from not just extended friends that you're not seeing at the house as much anymore, but you're actually feeling it in your own relationship with her and her relationship with the family as a whole. What did you do, John?
It was very difficult, and you know, I tried to react really strongly. I just thought I could just talk her out of this whole, you know, get her back, you know, force her back into her faith, and And we had long, extended, very intense discussions. We were just viewing it as rebellion. I mean, it was just, she was fighting against what our core beliefs. But there was a point after a long time that I realized that I was really making it more about me than I was about her.
Wow.
And when I really realized that I was really more concerned about the reflection it had on me as a Christian, as a deacon,
as a
father, and I just was able to let that go and just learn to just decide I was going to love her where she was. I didn't understand why she was. I was just going to love her anyway, and just try to keep the bridge open between us, and it changed everything.
Well, and what you didn't know was that along the way, you, Mackenzie, were planning to actually exit the country. You had a trip already planned to Europe, so what had started as a casual, let's try to meet each other someday, actually became plans.
Right.
Were you scared about doing that at all?
I was. I had several times I would lay in my bed at night and kind of think, what am I doing? I had pushed away my friends, my family, and my faith. But at some point, I looked around. I didn't feel like I had my friends or my family or God. I had, like I said, pushed it all away. So I kind of felt like I had gone so far, I couldn't turn back now. I couldn't just walk down the stairs and say, never mind, guys, sorry I put you all through all this awfulness. And I felt like I had to go through with it. And plus, I wanted to.
Yes, yes. So along the way, John, really by the grace of God, you find out about this plan for her leaving. And what was that like for you?
I had a friend of mine call me. I was on a business trip on the East Coast, and he said, I don't know if you understand what's going on, but Mackenzie's been in this secret relationship for a year. Were you aware of that?
Wow.
I said, no, I didn't know anything about a secret relationship. I knew she was interested in Islam.
Right.
He said, well, John, she's engaged to marry a guy overseas. She's going to leave as early as 2 weeks.
Wow.
It was a real... It was like an explosion gets too close to your ears and you just hear ringing. But I was able to get once I was able to kind of get my arms around it, I realized that she was a victim and that she was in danger. And we've been treating it as being something completely different, and it really just changed the way we approached it from that point on.
So the FBI actually gets involved. That was a blessing that you went right to the top of the heap and said, I need your help, rather than just having a gentle conversation, because you were ready to go, no matter what. What changed your mind?
It was the final meeting with the FBI. We had one earlier, and I still wanted to be with Adam. I decided not to go to Kosovo anymore because of that initial interview. But was it probably 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, we had a final meeting with Agent Sheridan, and he said, Mackenzie, we really have nothing else to do. We've done everything we can, but we will tell you that if you text him and say, there's nothing you can do to bring him here, there's nothing, and nothing your family can do. You're going to have to figure this out on your own. He will text you back and say, okay, well, then you come to Kosovo, we'll get married, and we can go back to the U.S. So on the way home, I did decide to text him that finally, and I told him exactly, that just I can't bring you here. And he said, okay, well, then you come to the U.S., we'll get married and go home. And then I started realizing that, he was predictable. He really was. And the FBI was right. And then later on that night, I looked around and saw all this damage that I had done. And I just realized, love should not do this to me or do it to my family or anything.
Boy, good thing you have a smart daughter, huh? Well, together they have written this book called Almost Gone. 25 days and one chance to save our daughter. It is a compelling story, and every parent should read this. Every young person should read this so that you can understand the world today is not always what it appears to be. It's available wherever books are sold. We thank you both for being here and for the message you bring to us. It's wise counsel in the crazy world we live in today. So appreciate it. Great to have you here.
Thank you very much.